We are now loading, guys.
Jim, I didn't know you were a technology wizard on top of everything else.
Jim is everything, man.
Hmm.
Nice.
Never ends.
Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26B Racer Podcast. I'm Jim Litsky here once again. Coach Jerry Rodriguez. Coach, this has been a fluster, but we are here, we are alive, and this is exciting.
I don't think I have ever seen you.
Hold on. Oh, you know what happened? Hang on. Go ahead. Keep speaking, Jerry.
I don't think, Jim, I've ever seen.
Go ahead.
I don't think I've ever seen you under this much stress at the beginning of an episode. I mean, you were the pressure was on to get this thing going.
Yeah, you know what? I'd use my mechanical brain, and there's not much up there. There's not much of a mechanical brain in this one. As Bob Babbitt and Michael Epstein know, our guests on this episode, I race hard, I coach, but anything else that comes in, it goes right out the other ear.
Well,
Let's just say there's not much between the ears, Jerry.
Well, yeah, that's a nice you're trying to fool the audience here, but we know it takes a smart guy to pull this off. You actually were able, I mean, there are 8,000 chords in here. I've tripped 3 times already, but you got it going.
Oh, I had to keep thinking outside the box. And as you see, we just had a little audio difficulty. But hey, we're live on YouTube. So everybody who's listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, don't be afraid to ask questions. We got some really special guests virtually in studio on Zoom right now. Michael Epstein, how are you, buddy?
I am great. Good morning.
Good morning. And Bob, the legendary funky dude, Bob Babbitt. Funky dude, is that your nickname? I just found this out this morning. I was doing a little research on you. The funky dude.
Yeah, I used to have that on my business card. You don't want to be too serious when you do this stuff, and we don't have to have a real job for a living. When we get to watch people play or go play ourselves, that's really what it's all about.
Isn't it true? Who gave you that nickname? Did you know this, Jerry? The funky
No,
dude?
this is no, this is new.
That was on. I put that on early business cards with Competitor Magazine, publisher and funky dude. Just stuff gets too serious when you're meeting with clients. It's always nice to break the ice a little bit with a little humor.
Is this back? This is back in the days with Lois Schwartz and yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. We're talking. We started a Competitor back in '87.
Yeah.
And I think that might have been the first year of the then Malibu Triathlon.
It was, yep.
So,
we started
Bob,
at the same time. We broke out at the same time.
I'm just gonna say, Bob, I am nervous having you on because you're such a legend of the sport. I don't even know the reason I'm nervous. I don't know where to start with you. I want to talk about the new Zuma Beach Triathlon. I want to integrate Michael in this conversation. I want to integrate Jerry into the conversation, but really, it's just about me and you, buddy. I mean, we're just gonna do what we do at every race we see each other. We're gonna talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Heidi might jump in, give me a hug here and there. But don't worry about these two guys. Tell me, I want to talk to you, buddy. I want to get deep into what you're all about.
Me and you, my friend. And let's just chat. Forget about these losers.
So you have the breakfast with Bob. He has a breakfast with Bob. Have you ever been on breakfast with Bob, Jerry?
Oh, the guy's never invited me on. Has he invited you?
I'm just gonna.
You were
Have
on.
you ever been on breakfast with Bob?
Someday. That's my dream.
Let me tell you, I know this as a fact. The number one watched and listened to episode of Breakfast with Bob. He's had everybody on in the world. Number one is when I was on with him in Atlantic
you
City.
were actually on.
Yeah. When I was on there in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I think we that was number one of all time. Atlantic City, Challenge Atlantic City. I think you won that race, right?
I did in my mind, yes. Actually, it's one of the only race I DNF'd because my cassette broke out in the middle of some blueberry field, and I didn't know what the hell. I was out there picking blueberries for 3 hours.
Nice.
But it's an honor to have you, Bob. You started triathlon, and when did you start triathlon? I mean, what was your first race, your first experience in the sport?
78. 78 was when we first moved to San Diego. Triathlon was really just getting going down at Fiesta Island, the birthplace of the sport. And then 1980 went over and did Ironman. When the Earth was still cooling and there was only 108 of us in the third ever Ironman on an island of Oahu. It hadn't moved to the big island yet. So in 78 and 79, there was 15 starters and 12 finishers. And then because of an article in Sports Illustrated, it blew up to 108 of us in 1980. So that was Dave Scott, Dave McGilvery, myself, Kurt Madden. It was sort of a lot of folks who are still involved with the sport today.
So when you were in 77, 78, 79,
You were 12, right?
you were a young guy, but did you look at it like, I want to do that? Like, what made you say, I'm going to go over there in 1980 and do this sport?
Well, the article in Sports Illustrated was a draw. It was like a 10-page article about an event with 12 finishers. But my roommate at the time, Ned Overend, who went on to become world mountain bike champion,
Sure.
But back then, mountain bikes hadn't been invented yet. That's how long ago that was. So he was a mechanic at San Diego Suzuki. I was running a PE program called Bob Time at a little private school. And the two of us read this article and immediately went to a police auction, got some bikes that had been in a fire for $75 each. And then we went over and really had no clue what we were doing. We went over there. I thought I had pannier, sleeping bag, and tent put on the bike because I thought you swam 2.4, rode 56, camped out, and rode back the next day and ran the marathon. Had no idea, right? Hawaiian sweetbread. My crew gave me a Big Mac fries and a Coke at 25 miles on a bike. Root beer snow cone at mile 90, full-on 45-minute massage between a bike and a run. It was a little different era, but I knew when I finished that race.
I think I just found my new fueling strategy.
Exactly. But I knew when I finished that thing that my life had been changed forever. It was just something about it. I was like, this is the coolest thing I have ever done. I thought it was going to take me 2 days. I finished in one, and I feel like $1 million, and the rest of the world needs to know about this silly sport. And that led to becoming a LA editor for Running News, convinced the editor to change it from Running News to Running and Triathlon News based on the 108 of us who had just done this silly event. And that led eventually to Competitor Magazine in June of '87 and Competitor Radio and Breakfast with Bob, and pretty much everything else followed.
You just rolled with it. You just said you had an idea and you just implement. Fast forward, what is that, 50 years now? And look where we're at.
I was one of Bob doesn't know this, but I was one of his first readers, picking up Competitor, listening to him. In fact, I was swimming with Harold Johnson. You remember Harold, right?
Harold was the editor of Triathlete Magazine, creator of Swim Magazine, right?
Exactly. And we had bought Swim. Anyway, without all the business side behind it, I've been a big fan, big follower of Bob. In fact, met his partner, Lewis. She covered me racing the La Jolla Rough Water Swim back in '88, '89, '90. And then you started working with Heidi. I'm forgetting her last name.
From Swim, from Fitness Swimmer magazine?
Fitness Swimmer, yes, the big Rodale, the big Rodale enterprise.
Runner's World and Men's Health, all that was under that, and they created Fitness Swimmer, and we are the sales group for Fitness Swimmer.
That's right. I remember yourself and John and
and Lois.
Way back when.
Michael, you entertained by this
I
walk
am.
down
Are you
history
kidding me?
lane between these two?
I'll just, like you said, I'll just sit back and listen, and I can chime in whenever.
Yeah, we'll get to you in time. So just warm up those buttery tones.
I won't go anywhere.
We'll be talking to you in a second. But no, it's great. So in 1987 was it you started CAF, Bob? 87?
87 was the creation of Competitor. And then through early on in the magazine, I started covering wheelchair athletes and Jerry will remember Jim Knab and Craig Blanchett and all these guys. Wheelchair racing was just getting going.
Yes.
It's one of those things where when you go to interview a runner or even sometimes a triathlete who's not Jim Lubinsky and doesn't have a personality, they'll just tell you, yeah, I went fast. And it's hard to get 1,000 words out of I went fast. But talking to a guy who was an Olympic trials pole vaulter, who was going to track practice, on his motorcycle and ended up getting paralyzed, got hit by a car, came back to win the Boston Marathon 5 times. That guy had a story to tell. And I remember the first when I interviewed him and decided I wanted to put this wheelchair guy on the cover of Competitor Magazine. People were like, you can't put a wheelchair guy on the cover of the magazine. No one's going to pick up your free magazine. But there was, Jimmy, his whole thing was that he wanted to change perception about what somebody can do in a wheelchair. He wanted to show that, hey, I'm the first guy across the line in these running races. Where's my prize money? He was that, sort of the squeaky wheel. I'm going to make this a real sport. So when covering Jimmy, the one thing I heard from him was most people don't understand when you become paralyzed, all of a sudden you're 25, 30 years old, and here come mom and dad back in your life. No sense of self, no sense of independence. So that always stuck with me when Jim McLaren, who was a amputee, he was a football player at Yale. He was taking acting classes in New York City, gets hit by a bus, ends up losing his leg, comes back with a prosthetic leg to run a 3:16 marathon. I meet the guy in Kona. He goes 10:42. with a walking leg. He's stopping to pour the sweat out throughout the race because these legs were basically prehistoric. And then, he after he goes 10:42, he's sponsored by Budweiser. He's traveling the world. Everybody knows who he is. And 8 years later, he's racing up in Orange County at the Mission Viejo. You guys remember that Mission Viejo race where
Yes,
you
of course.
win a Toyota? Yeah. He gets hit again. A van goes through a closed intersection, hits the back of his bike, propels him headfirst into a pole, and the guy's an amputee, becomes a quadriplegic. And so that's when we decided we're going to put on a little triathlon for Jimmy to raise $25,000 to get him a van with hand controls to give him that independence that he had lost. And that's what we did. Put it on at La Jolla Cove, raised $49K. We're thinking we're done. Give Jimmy a van, and 3 amputee women come up to us and they're like, listen, it's so cool what you did for Jimmy, but did you know when you get injured, your health insurance covers a walking around leg or an everyday wheelchair? Nothing to do with sport is covered by insurance because they consider sport a luxury item. So we didn't believe that sport was a luxury item. And at that point, we got our 501c3 and decided if someone needed a piece of equipment, training, or travel to stay in the game of life through sport, Challenge Athletes Foundation would be there. And now it's been 32 years, raised $180 million, sent out over 48,000 grants to challenged athletes in all 50 states, 73 countries. And you guys are like this. We've given out grants now in 105 different sports. Our 105th sport, wheelchair pickleball.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Keeps expanding.
Gotta stay on the forefront.
Exactly.
I think Bob Babbitt has done the most, and I'm not an insider, I do my coaching thing and I sort of stay to myself, but I've always followed the sport from 1982. Bob Babbitt has done the most for the sport of triathlon than anybody else that I'm aware of,
Absolutely.
ever read about.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, it's just phenomenal, and has been able to maintain incredible relationships with everybody. He's Switzerland. I mean, Bob's opinion, he has his thoughts, but he's able to articulate those very carefully where he doesn't alienate anybody, and has continued to just elevate the sport over the last, we're getting close now. We're getting on close to 50 years, right?
Well,
Close to 50 years. So thank you very much for that, Jerry. I appreciate it. But it's the great thing about our sport. We all know, everybody on this call, Michael's seen it. You guys have seen it. This sport changes lives for the better.
Yes.
Right? Last night I was
Absolutely.
they had the banquet for the Cause events, and you had 300 people there last night. I'm interviewing Cherie Grunfeld, who's 80 years old and has won 14 Ironman
really?
world titles. Right? Yeah. And then in the audience, there's Emilio De Soto and his 3 boys who are all racing triathlon. Keith Simmons, co-founder of Xterra, whose kids are racing. His daughter's racing those races. So we're seeing the new generation coming along because this sport is so great for kids. It's great for it's a fountain of youth for Cherie, and it's a wonderful sport for. If we were kids doing this sport, imagine all of us are hyperactive. This was the greatest sport there is. You jump in, you're swimming a little bit, you go, oh, I'm getting a little tired. Oh, I get to ride my bike. Then you're riding a bike and you're going, oh, my neck's getting a little sore. Oh, I get to run. And I'm done.
Bob,
right? It's real simply the best sport there is.
I remember coaching Cherie in 1990 when she first got into triathlon.
Yep.
Here's my question.
We're going down memory lane.
So here's the thing. Like I said, I sit with Bob whenever I see him. He races still. He's on course racing, and 50 years triathlon. Probably started when you're 10, so you're about 60 years old, right? You're no spring chicken, right? You started when you're 50 years. It's been around. You were 10 when you started. 60 years old. He knows everybody. Like, I'll be talking to him for a long amount of time. Hey, Joe. Hey, Frank. Hey, Jenny. Hey, Janine. He knows everybody's name. He knows stories about each person. What is it? The active lifestyle that leads to that sharpness of your brain? Is it what you eat? Is it your genes? Is it Heidi keeping you on point? How do you know all these people? How do you recognize and remember every single person that you've run into over the years? What do you attribute that to?
Case. I wish that was the case. I wish everybody wore name tags because everybody should have a permanent name tag. It's hard to remember people's names, but I do remember faces, and
I'm
so
giving
cool.
you props. Unless you just make
so
up
cool.
the names, you just call anybody whatever you want because you are Bob Babbitt. You do whatever you want on race course. You can do whatever you want. You go 15 hours at Kona. You say no, it's 10 hours, and then they just 10 hours. Okay, they believe you.
Yeah.
So when Michael, let's talk about
Hi.
Oh, by the way, Michael Epstein's here in the house.
Sorry about that.
You can just black out my screen for a while, turn it on when it's appropriate. It's fine. I'm
Michael
fascinated.
Epstein
I'll
is
just
my
listen.
I call you the flower girl. I don't call you Mike. I call you my
I'm the
flower.
trophy. I'm the trophy girl. We go
At
way
the
back.
Santa Barbara Triathlon, Jerry's very own Santa Barbara Triathlon, I announce the awards, and Michael every year gives the awards out to the recipients. And the first couple of years it was rough, but now we got it down to
I was gonna say sometimes correctly, even. Yeah.
Sometimes
But
we get, first place gets sixth place, sixth place gets first. Whatever. As long as they're getting some plaque, Bob, we give them something. They're
you
happy.
can't beat hanging out on the beach in Santa Barbara. So it's a great day, and I look forward to it every year.
That's right. That's right.
So, I'm the one who said, "Hey, Jim, could we have Michael and Bob on?" Because I was having breakfast a couple of weeks ago with Paula came in the LA Tri Club, and we sort of went down memory lane, and started talking about the Malibu Triathlon and the history and so on, of which quite a bit he doesn't know about. Understandably so, he wasn't around in the beginning days. And like anything else, there's always over time there are little frictions here and there and so on. And we talked about races going away and coming back. And, with Ironman, they've done such a wonderful job, as Bob knows, of promoting the sport and really helping and amplifying the word of triathlon globally. But also it has hurt to some extent independent race directors, right? And we've seen smaller races go away. And then COVID came around and that really killed the independent race director. So I thought we'd go through sort of the history of Malibu, how it started, your involvement with it, Michael, you getting it started, and kind of give us the background, and then we could get to the nowadays as to what's happening this year.
Well, I'm going to give you kind of like the really, really brief overview and actually tie together a lot of these pieces that Bob just talked about. And this wasn't intentional. We didn't rehearse this, but so I did not start triathlon in 1978. I probably started in about 1984, 1985. But like Bob, just thought this was incredible.
That's when I met you, when Team Malibu, when Kevin Steele started up that triathlon club.
Yeah, we had a triathlon club in Malibu. I lived outside of Malibu, but it was the place to train. You come down to PCH, go swim at Zuma. And we had a great little group. It was a network of 50, 70 people that grew over time. There was lifeguards and police officers and firemen, and it was just a great thing to do. And I started doing, I think I did a race in Rosarita. There was a great one down there. There was a triathlon down there that was wonderful. And just loved the experience. I ended up doing, actually, you mentioned Dave McGilvery. I actually did one of his races in Boston because that was a goal of mine. At that point, it was called the Olympic distance, or it still is. It was the precursor to the Olympic distance, and did that. And I actually lost my shoes in the race, and I had to run the 10K barefoot along the banks of the Charles River in Boston. And
I was just going to say that.
I invented barefoot running. That was 1986.
Yeah.
And for me, it was such a big deal to fly all the way to Boston. I'd never been to the city and do this great experience that they lost my shoes. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to not finish this race. It was too big of a goal for me. I got to know Dave. I said, you know what? I don't know how the only thing that went wrong is you lost my shoes. I'm fascinated. How did you get 2,000 people from a lake outside of Boston, the bike by Fenway Park, and just like I was just blown away by the organization that went into it. And he's like, well, why don't you just put on your own race? I'm like, no, I couldn't do that. So I came home and I put on my own race, just for fun, just for a hobby, mainly for Team Malibu. Maybe I'm just like, you know what? Let's do something that our friends can hang out with. And do something that they can experience. And we designed this little thing in Malibu in 1987, the same time that competitor launched. And lo and behold, Emilio De Soto, who Bob just mentioned, won the race. And we didn't make any money. We weren't trying to make money. It was nothing. Money had nothing to do with it. We did it for fun. We had 300 people. And to this day, I mean, I'm fortunate now that I now live around the corner from that same beach. I didn't know Zuma Beach was, one of the most famous beaches in the world, and got all this publicity. And, I mean, obviously I knew it was beautiful and it was in Malibu, but I can picture to this day what the feeling, and I can still feel to this day, the feeling I had when, I don't know if it was quite over, but I just saw how happy, and believe me, this was grassroots. There was no fence around the transition area. I think we had bike racks, probably, probably a megaphone, not a PA system. There was a restaurant across the street. We did a little pasta party afterwards. But the feeling that I got from seeing so many people have fun because of the work that I put out there, like that was just satisfying to me. It was the best I ever felt doing anything, more fun than I had actually racing myself. So I said, all right, I got to keep doing this. And, I eventually turned into a business. That event turned from an event with 300 people in it to a worldwide phenomenon with media and celebrities. And I don't know how much of how much you want to know of how it got
Well, what was
to what it got
its
to from that
height,
little tiny event.
at the height of the race? What was the peak number of participants? And because I remember you took it eventually to 2 days, because it was always on a Sunday, I believe, right?
Yep,
You
it was
went to
always on a
Saturday,
Sunday. And
Sunday.
by the way, Jerry was a volunteer at that first race. Let's not leave that out of the equation because he was part of Team Malibu, and
Right,
Kevin
we were the
Steele, who was the head of it,
volunteers.
said to everybody at the club, like, "Hey, anybody that can, I need you out there helping Michael put on the race." So Jerry was out there making sure that everybody went the right way. So that was pretty cool. So thank you for that. But again, I'll try not to take too much time, bore people with too many of the details. But I mean, it grew, it got popular. We had a thing, probably the second or third year. A friend of mine looks at me and says, "Hey, don't look now, but Tom Cruise is in your transition area." And Lois was there. Actually, you mentioned Lois Schwartz. Lois took some photos, and I was like, "What?"
Was he
Tom
giving
Cruise
out his
showed up and
coconut
raced.
cake? Was he giving out his coconut cake to everybody? He was giving out the coconut cake in transition to all those people?
He was not giving out coconut cake, but Nicole Kidman was there with I think they had one kid at the time. So I will not forget that either. And he did a relay team. So he did a relay team. He got one of not one of, actually, you'll probably remember. You remember Diane Granger? She was a stud lifeguard, open water
Know Diane
swimmer.
well, yeah.
So he got Diane to swim for him, and he got his personal trainer, who was a fast runner, to run for him. So he went to win. He biked on a relay team, and we're like, okay, this is a good idea. We're in Malibu. Why don't we have celebrities race together with athletes? And Bob obviously had this incredible connection with the athlete community. I started reaching out to celebrities instead of waiting for them to show up. And another guy named Terry Martin, who's unfortunately since passed away, worked for Power Bar, had incredible relationships with athletes and celebrity athletes. And we slowly, kind of together, built this celebrity presence that built this media presence that attracted bigger sponsors, that attracted more people. A lot of things serendipitously happened at the same time. Unfortunately, right around that same time, a few years after Tom Cruise did it, my ex-wife got diagnosed with cancer while she was pregnant with our son. And it was just incredible. It was just a very, very, difficult thing to navigate. Fortunately, they were both extremely healthy, but my son had to be delivered 6 weeks premature, which in 1996, I think we're at around now by then, was a big deal. It's less than it is now. He was born at 3 pounds, 8 ounces. So he was tiny. So that she could go right. So Chris, my ex-wife, could go right in for her cancer surgery. So she went in, she literally gave birth. A week later, had surgery for cancer. She had colon cancer. 6 months later, she got liver cancer. She got that addressed. And somehow out of all this, my little tiny baby, so he's now 6'3" and doing
I was gonna
well.
say that's not the 3 pound guy that I met at SoFi
No,
last year.
exactly. And my ex-wife is doing well and is healthy and is a successful realtor. So we kind of realized that we were getting through all this. We went, all right, well, how do we take this and give back? It's kind of similar to what Bob did with CAF. I'm guessing probably somewhere around the same time too. CAF might have been a few years before us. And
94, yeah.
yeah. So right around the same time. At that time, the AIDS epidemic was blowing up. So this is like the mid 90s. And I talked to Chris. I'm like, I want to use this event. And but by that point, I was putting on probably like 20 events a year all over the country. I said, you know what? I want to use this one event to give back. It's Malibu. There's celebrities. Maybe we can do something with this and really turn it into something. So we said, okay, let's try to help children. So there was an organization called the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation
That's right. Yes.
that was set up specifically to prevent the mother to child transmission of the HIV virus. So they had a very specific goal because this is we're dating ourselves even more at some point. We'll fast forward in case there's listeners that are not 90 years old like us, like Jim, you know. But this was an actor named Paul Michael Glaser, who was on a show called Starsky and Hutch, which again, this is dating ourselves. His wife got the HIV virus through a blood transfusion. And because they didn't even test blood back then, that's how new everything was. And she gave it to her children. She ended up dying from it. 2 of her kids died from it. And she set up this foundation to try to prevent that from happening to anybody else. What was amazing. So I just literally knocked on their door. It was a grassroots organization in Santa Monica and said, "Hey, I don't know anything about fundraising, but I want to help you with this triathlon I have." And they're like, "Okay, sure." And that's what started what turned into $20 million of fundraising over the next 28 years or 27 years. When my son's
20
29.
20 million fundraising.
20 million, yeah. Awesome. And it started out, I knew nothing about fundraising. So it started out where I saw auctions. So we would do an auction at the beach, you know, like auction off a trip, whatever. It would be all done. And my ex-wife would be like, "Hey, we're going to Ixtapa." I'm like, "What?" She's like, so she bought all the stuff because we just weren't good at auctions. Turns out auctions on the beach in Malibu probably weren't the smartest thing in the world. Then we brought on Nautica as a sponsor. We told them what we were doing. They're like, "Well, let's try an auction at Sports Club LA." We tried that. It didn't work. Somebody else came up with the idea of like, "Hey, let me go out to the studios." There was a guy that worked at Disney and say, "Why don't we start Disney? Why don't we start studio teams and see if we can figure out who the fastest studio Hollywood is, and we'll have them raise money for your charity." So that's kind of where the whole entertainment and corporate challenge came from. This guy named Michael Johnson. He actually, I think he just announced that he's stepping down as the CEO of Herbalife for like the 3rd time. He was the president of Disney International. So Michael Johnson and I started a small team at Disney, again, kind of like the triathlon, with 20, 30 people, helping, you know, encouraging them to fundraise. And I think we eventually probably raised $4 or $5 million for the Pediatric AIDS Foundation over the first 10 years that we did that. They actually found the drug to prevent the mother-to-child transmission of the virus. And it worked. They wiped it out in the US. They accomplished their goal. And I saw the power of research and ended up working with pediatric cancer research after that. After about 10 years, I just went, "Okay, we've done what we can for these guys. Let's go help someone else." And that's kind of the fundraising background. And so I don't know if I answered your question. How big did it get? It was 5,000 people over 2 days. The biggest celebrities there were, A-list celebrities. Going in circles a little bit, I had reached out to Robin Williams when we connected with the Pediatric AIDS Foundation, and actually Scott Tinley knew him. So Scott Tinley helped me get a line into Robin Williams. Scott Tinley's won the Ironman a few times, for those who don't know. So he helped me reach out to him, and it turns out Robin was on the board of the Pediatric AIDS Foundation as well. So Robin was a cyclist, came down, he was actually the official host of the event, let us put his pictures in our brochures with no charge. And at that point, he was winning Oscars. I mean, that was like the height of his career, the height of his career. And that just brought more celebrities. And then it just started happening organically. Bob brought Lance Armstrong to race on the relay team. Steve Young was there. I mean, it's just the list is as long as my arm of the celebrities. And that, I think that just generated more press and more people. I'd like to say there was a time when we were probably doing just as much as Ironman for the sport, just because we were getting enough media that was getting the name out of triathlon, and people were like, "Oh, let's do that." So long-winded way to answer your question. Watch what you answer me, what we ask me, because I'll answer it.
The cool part was that was really the genesis of the connection between CAF and Malibu, because we brought Rudy Garcia Tolson, who was a power bar athlete, and with Terry Martin, he came up and met Robin, right? And they met there for the first time, I think.
Yeah, you know, there's not a Malibu that went by where I didn't see Babbitt at the event as well. I mean, it's like year after year after year. You know, you're a staple there, and yeah, it's cool that you guys.
But Bob makes a good point. I mean, I think because we raised money from multiple charities with that event. I think I counted, it was probably 9 or 10, CAF being one of them. CAF did a lot of fundraisers at Malibu for a long time. Team in Training, you know, I don't want to rattle off all the things, but I think that's really, when we get to the Zuma Beach Triathlon, what's so serendipitous about CAF being our official charity, because we kind of came up together, you know, and I will
let's
say
back
just
up. You just made this announcement, right? So with the Zuma Beach Triathlon, right? We rebranded the name. It's named the Zuma Beach Triathlon, zumabeachtriathlon.org if you want more information on it. But back up. Say that again. So you have the Zuma Beach Triathlon, and CAF is what? What's the relationship here now? Just clarify for everybody.
Sure, absolutely. And we're super, I mean, it's amazing. We're incredible. It's an incredible partnership that feels like it was 30 years in the making, honestly. Um, and I'll fast forward to answer your question, but I was down at the San Diego Triathlon Challenge and just hugging everybody because it feels like such an incredible opportunity for us to work together. And there was a place I was going with this is I think celebrities motivated people, but one thing over time that motivated people more than celebrities, more than our publicity, was the challenge athletes that were out there year in and year out. And especially in the beginning with like Bob mentioned with Rudy, who I'll let Bob talk about Rudy and his background, but at the time it was a 9-year-old kid with no legs. That was the most, and to this day, I mean, he's won Olympic gold medals, one of the most inspirational things you would ever see. And the myriad of athletes and challenge athletes that came after Rudy, that Rudy literally opened the door for, at least in Malibu, and just kind of cleared the way to Bob. You know, what Bob said is like empowering people's lives through sport to let people know that they can be the same as everybody else. They can be out there with everybody else. They taught me things we needed to do on the courses to make it a little more accommodating for wheelchair athletes and things like that. There was a time, believe it or not, we actually resisted wheelchair athletes in the event because we didn't know it. We didn't understand it, you know, and organizations like the Challenge Athletes Foundation opened our minds. And, you know, it's almost like a little selfish. Like while we're helping people get into the event or accommodating them, they're helping us. I mean, they're inspiring everyone that's out there. And obviously at the Ironman, it's a huge inspiration for challenge athletes that can go that long. But at events like Malibu, do you see somebody, you know, we get a lot of first timers. Running 4 miles is a big deal. And then you see an amputee go running by you or running alongside you, and you just, your whole day changes. You know, maybe hopefully your whole life changes. So this partnership between the Zuma Beach Triathlon and the Challenge Athletes Foundation, they're going to be our official. We're going to encourage corporations to come out. We're going to encourage individuals to come out and fundraise for CAF in the same manner that we did for the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation literally 30 years ago.
Well, Bob, you're originally from Chicago, yeah?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's the thing:
best city in the world. Yeah.
Michael wasn't allowing wheelchairs on course, Bob had to come up and give Michael a little Chicago nudge. That's what we call it, right? The Chicago nudge. Hey now,
You know what?
Little
One of
knuckle
the
sandwich.
things,
You let those wheelchairs on
exactly.
course, or else you're gonna have to answer to me, buddy.
Yeah. Now the great thing about Michael is how you evolve in anything you do, or you perish. And Michael, I've always said, if you want to know how to be a race director, you go watch Michael at Malibu, because we've Jimmy and Jerry, you guys have been in enough events where the race director is the funnel, right? The media is here. Where's Johnny? You know, the guy picking up the garbage is here. Where's Johnny? Everything went through him. The press truck would be leaving, the race would be starting, and the race director would be running and putting cones down. And that's it went. Michael's that guy with the headset on. He's got his people. He's talking to the VIPs. He's talking to the sponsors. He's that guy who's got everything under control. It looks that way anyways to all of his outsiders. And it gives a calm to everybody in the race, because like, that's the guy putting this on for 5,000 people, and he seems cool as a cucumber. So when wheelchairs wanted to do the event, it was a matter of, hey, how do we make this happen? And Michael made that happen. And it's, you know, amputee athletes, wheelchair athletes. When our athletes are at the event, everybody wins. Right? That's what I love about it. Because for us, when people go do adaptive sports and they're playing wheelchair basketball, whatever, people are seeing it. But when you're racing and someone with a prosthetic leg runs by you, all of a sudden your perception changes, right? Your
100%,
perspective changes.
100%, yeah.
That's what I love about it. And Michael was wide open to that very early on.
So Michael, it's almost 40 years now that you've been putting on events, right?
Don't make me do the math, but yeah.
But
So
and then you got out for a few years, and what brought you back in?
well, I never. So that's interesting. So I got out for a few years. As you guys know, and some people know, I took up sailing and was very fortunate to be able to live on a sailboat for a couple of years. I highly encourage anybody to do it if they can, and sail about halfway around the world. I sailed in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, and it was amazing. But I always had, I had been downsizing my business over time for a variety of reasons. I got tired of travel. There was opportunities to have events partner with bigger companies.
Well, the bottom line is being a race director, many people think it's an easy job. My wife is, as you know, puts on Santa Barbara. It is the freaking hardest job I think I've ever, and I put on a few races back in the early 90s. It is such a hard job. And when you're putting on so many events, it's obvious that you needed to downsize and take some time off and go sail the world if you
Exactly. I mean,
have that
I put
opportunity.
on 25 events. I'm sorry for interrupting. I put in like 25, 30 events a year on for, I don't know, whatever the number is, 20 years, doesn't matter. A long time. I mean, look, we had great staff. We had 10 employees. I loved it when I did it, but it was, it was time to be home a little bit more and travel a little bit less. And we had a big sister event in South Beach. So I sold that off because I didn't feel like going to Miami anymore. I loved Miami when I went there. And when it was time not to do it anymore, it was. So I've been downsizing anyhow. But what I was saying is I kept an event, as you know, in Hermosa Beach that we actually were able to manage from the boat and still
We
come back
sponsored that
in.
for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tower
thank you.
26 was the title sponsor. Thank you. So it's just, it wasn't like I never wanted out. I just wanted a little time to kind of decompress and relax. I was so excited to actually, Bob and I have pictures on the stage in Hermosa when I flew in from Italy to put it on. So
Yeah.
you love something because believe me, that event didn't pay for those flights. I mean, just you love something when you're flying from halfway around the world to go hang out at the beach for a couple hours to feel that same energy with 1,000 people. So,
So
and
what's going to
and
be
I,
different between what you're doing this year and what you did in the prior years when you were running the Malibu Triathlon that's now going to be called, well, now that's called the Zuma Beach Triathlon.
well, let me be clear. This is a new event. It's called the
That's
Zuma
right. Yeah,
Beach
I understand.
Triathlon. Okay, so let's be very, very clear on that. Um, but it's actually a similar experience to Hermosa, where there's, like, as you guys know, an opportunity presented itself. The city put out the rights to the event to bid. We won the bid. And it's literally something that I never stopped loving, to the point that I flew in from Italy to hang around that energy. So it's around the corner from my house. I'm fortunate that I live near Zuma Beach. And it's something I love to do. And it's an organization that I think I can do a good job for. And it feels a lot like, so I thank you for indulging me for that story from when there was 300 people, whatever it is, 40 years ago. I actually have that same energy at 64 years old than I did then. It feels just like that because it's super grassroots again. I don't have 10 employees. I'm doing a lot of stuff myself, but I have time to do it. And it's fun. Like, I'm loving it. I'm loving going to Caltrans and they're thankful to see me because it's me, that's not me because they want Michael Epstein, but the actual person that's out there. There's great advantages with private equity that do things and they allow people to have a lot of resources, and there's downsides to it, right? So I can tell you that connecting with a lot of people, not people that know me, they're just people that understand that the guy whose name is essentially on the event is also filling out the permits,
What
is
are the
also.
so are we
Right.
going with just one distance? What are the distances of the race that we're competing in this year?
So one thing that Zuma has lent itself to is it's kind of funny because I had to look it up to see if I was using the right name. So there's a definition for sprint triathlon by USAT. And we don't meet that definition because we had a longer distance that came from something that I did 30 years ago that just seemed like unique. So it's a half-mile swim, an 18-mile bike, and a 4-mile run that we're calling the Zuma distance because it's unique to Zuma Beach. And it's theoretically a sprint, but it's a lot longer. A sprint's almost kind of half those distances, the typical sprint, like Hermosa. And I think like you have in Santa Barbara, right? I think you have the Santa Barbara 10, which is
Right.
kind of similar, might be a little shorter. Um, And then we're doing Olympic distance, but highly limited because what we've done, as a lot of people know, and hopefully some of the people are listening, there are tunnels in PCH that can be flooded from time to time. So we've designed a course, and Jim actually had insight into the course. Bob had insight into the course, that if the tunnels are flooded, it doesn't matter. We've got permits, it's permitted, it's actually safer because it's completely closed to traffic. And it is a very long, and I want to emphasize that, long lap. So it's a 2-lap course for the 18-mile bike ride. Obviously, we're talking about the bike. The swim is in the ocean. The run is next to the beach on the beachside path down there at Zuma. And the Olympic, we're going to limit it to 400 athletes, and that's going to be 3 laps.
Oh, we better get on this now.
Yeah.
Barry's racing it this
So
year.
it's a loop course, but I think there's some confusion out there because there were loops that were done one year that were very tiny and very short, and this is not that. This is
you can see the map at zumatriathlon.org. You can see the map of the course, see the course options.
Here's the bottom line of this, Jim. I think, and this is where we started with when I was asking Bob initially, and making the comment that what has happened, especially in the last 5 years, but it started about 10 years ago, independent race directors started going away, okay? And there's a big reduction of it, especially in the last several years. And if you don't have a fertile ground of race directors, your sport just starts depreciating in that geography. And what has happened in Los Angeles proper over the last several years, we've seen a depreciation of races. And at the end of the day, we want more events. If we don't have events like this, Jim, us as coaches don't do well. You have less athletes to coach. You have less folks participating in the event. So I'm glad you've taken on the challenge, Michael, to do this. I got an opportunity to work with you when we were sponsoring Hermosa. I mean, I don't think I'd seen you in 30 years prior to that, 1988.
Really?
I mean, I'd come in frequently to Malibu, and we had a lot of athletes always racing because we've always supported the race. So I want to encourage all the athletes that's in and around Los Angeles to participate in the event because we need to support it. It doesn't matter what club you belong to. Everybody wins. The sport wins. The athletes win. Coaches, it's good for us. It's good for our clubs. Whether it's your race, whether it's, I don't even know what else do we have in Los Angeles as races. There's very little left. There's Long Beach, the Long Beach race. We need to go to all of them, right?
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara, right? My wife that's
I get
that
to
race.
say that. Imagine if Elizabeth, you say all the races
Well,
and
you
say
get to
Santa
see me
Barbara.
hand
Oh,
out
boy.
trophies, which I think is the main reason to come.
Yeah. Wait, say that again?
I said you get to see me hand out trophies if you go to
Oh,
Santa
yeah, I
Barbara.
mean, hopefully you're going to be doing that. Bob, are we going to set up a booth at the Zuma Beach Triathlon so you can sign autographs? I don't like you just walking around. I mean, you need a spot,
idea.
sign autographs. We'll give you books. You can sign our Tower 26 book. You could act like it's your own.
There we go. I'll be hanging out at the CAF booth. Of course. I'd love to.
Got to set up a
hang out and
table,
chat with
sign
people.
and sign things. I love it. I want to see BB. I call him BB. I want to see him, right, BB?
I'll bring some breakfast with Bob hats and I'll sign
You know
them
what?
for
That's
you.
good. And I look forward to the
I told you
invite
people want you to
for
sell
Jerry
those,
and I
right?
to be on breakfast with Bob together while we're there. Huh?
We'll do that.
I could see it now, ocean in the background. We're in our Speedos, all three of us in the Speedos. Michael's walking around serving margaritas.
Yes,
My mind is
you don't want
blown
me
right
in
now.
Speedo, but I'll serve
Our
margaritas.
chests, shave our chest on the beach.
that's-
I like it. That'd be great.
That's just a regular
That's
Sunday
That's
night.
a bad
first of all,
visual.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to this. I do want to emphasize it. Just, Bob and I over the years, we've always, we had this kind of really good kind of lift with Rudy and Robin early on, and challenge athletes were always out there. But for years, we was like, how do we do more? How can we do more with CAF? So this opportunity, I think, for all of us is incredible. And I think hopefully it's another megaphone for CAF, not that they need one. And it's inspirational to people that come out there. One of the other things that we're doing that is so funny, because right before this call, somebody had emailed me and had just wanted the same information about the courses, somebody that had raced in Malibu in the past. And we added a kids race that we're doing on Saturday. Super low key, borrowed some ideas from Santa Barbara. We're doing a family division. And this lady was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I could bring my 9 and 10-year-old and then come race the next day. And I think we're going to have an event that gets back to that kind of home family togetherness feeling that was there when Jerry was volunteering, and we were trying to figure it out and literally running around the speed.
Here's the bottom line, buddy. Tower 26, we're going to support you. I'm going to personally support you. I'm going to have our, as you know, we moved to Santa Barbara, so I'm going to bring down our Santa Barbara group to the event. So in Santa Barbara, you're going to get whoever we coach in Los Angeles supporting the event. I want to see it become be successful and do really, really well.
And for all you out of town, all the people coming from out of town, Jerry will pick you up at the airport. I haven't told you guys this. This is a worldwide podcast. I hope you're not nervous. Like, this is spread worldwide. I know Breakfast with Bob's mainly contains a couple states. There's going to be people flying in from Europe from this, and Jerry will pick you up at LAX.
We got 160 countries.
At least 160. So, Bob, any final things from you before we let you go?
Just working with Michael is a treat. We worked together on our Muddy Buddy Ride and Run series. I think we first started talking about that when we were at Malibu at Hermosa one year. And next thing you know, Michael's putting on Muddy Buddy. He goes to Hermosa, be putting on Muddy Buddies all over the country. And that was just such a wonderful partnership. Always enjoyed working with Michael. And it was cool having him come down and check out our San Diego Triathlon Challenge that we did at Mission Bay last year, because he sort of seen the evolution. He'd been there early on, and then seeing what the thing had become. It become Malibu-esque. It become really big. It became a big deal.
Oh, you took it to the next level. No. I as I told you, I'm like, I'm gonna have to up my production value standards after seeing what you guys do in San Diego.
It's mid-October challenge athletes. Mid-October usually, right? The week after Kona, typically.
4th, 25, 26 this year. Late October, yeah. But you guys appreciate
want more information on that, go to challengeathletes.org. But also go up to Zuma Beach Triathlon and check out Bob over there, meet him, shake his hand, get an autograph, and tune in to Breakfast with Bob, which he has early and often, and very, very probably the #2 podcast in triathlon. So,
Michael, I want to thank you for everything you've done for the last. Michael, thank you for everything you've done for the last number of years in the sport. Bob, I don't know how you continue to carry on the workload that you have. You've been doing this for almost 50 years. It's absolutely insane. Your enthusiasm for the sport is just, it's so infectious, and I'm so happy that you're still doing it. So thank you for everything you've done for everybody. I mean, on behalf of, it's literally the world that you've helped in triathlon. So thank you.
Okay, so guys, go to zumabeachtriathlon.org September 13th and 14th on the beautiful beach of Zuma, Malibu, California. And we're going to come in hot, guys. Tower 26 is going to be there. 400 slots only for Olympic distance. After this podcast, that's going to be filled. So
registration opens tomorrow.
Really appreciate you guys tuning in. So we will we'll see you, maybe we'll have on again in a couple months.
They can hang on if they want to. We're going to go through the rest of our podcast here. We have stuff to finish up with.
Hey, you guys go about your business and do what you need to do.
Thank you for having us on.
For having us.
The opportunity to talk about it, and keep doing what you guys do. It's amazing. You guys are visionaries and trendsetters, and I look forward to following your lead for many years to come.
Yeah, he knows how to get on my good side. Call me things I've never been called before. On the good way. I'm called everything on the bad side, but visionary. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, boys.
All right, take care.
Later. Fun stuff. All right. So, Jerry, that was a lot of info.
There was some history that I didn't even remember, but over the years, because it's been so long. You go 1988. There are not many race directors that have been around that long.
No.
And going through the Glacier Foundation, and I remember the story, and he was talking about it. I go, gosh, yes, I recall that.
Yeah.
And I was there at 88, and there in the 90s doing some of the relays. And then when I was running at UCLA, taking athletes there, and now Tower 26, it's good to have them back.
It's good. It's good to be back. It's a good team. I like those two teamed up. So we should have a lot of fun out there. And we're going to be, like I said, we have a lot of people. When we have a lot of people at those, it makes it extra fun. Barbecues afterwards, night before we do a happy hour, have some drink. No, not really. We get carb load the night before, then we have a happy hour the night after.
So I feel like this was almost I got a whole set of notes here for us to go through that we didn't get to, because this ended up being sort of the show, and I don't think we have a ton of time left to do much.
We are going to go to our video review. Let's do that.
Should we?
Let's do a video review. But we didn't ask him what nutrition is going to be on course. We should have asked him that, because we want to get precision hydration on course, Jerry.
Well, you call up Michael and see if they have a nutrition sponsor.
I know athletes always race the fastest when they're taking the precision hydration, so maybe we get them to have this on the Zuma Beach Triathlon
We're
course.
doing a test over the next week. We're having athletes use this before our workouts and then during the workout, because we're in our phase of, this is a big week, as you know, of training, right? Of our second 3-week cycle. So we're using the stuff during the workout.
So I'll tell you something. I'm gonna come outside of triathlon for a minute, and this is just our talk about precision hydration quickly. I train at the gym with a ton of NFL players, right? And before one of them left, he's 350-pound offensive lineman. I won't say the team he plays for. I don't want to give it away. He doesn't, he plays on the East Coast in an area that's kind of swampy, very humid. And I said, "How do you keep the sodium in?" He says, "I can't. I cramp nonstop. I'm just a total cramp in the summer days in the heat. I can't stave it off. It's too much for my big system to handle." So I gave him the 1500 precision hydration.
Oh,
this is no joke.
Yeah,
I gave him the 1500. I said, "Take this. If it works for you, it's on the feed, it's on Amazon, it's wherever you can find it. Just type in precisionhydration.com, buy it off there, give you 15% off with TW 2025. He did it. He came back. I saw him last week and he said, "Change my game. I didn't cramp one time. I took it all season. I took it before games. I took them during games. Never one cramp." And he's gonna be a Pro Bowler this year.
Nice.
So, pat on my back
Wow.
for helping him nutrition wise with that. So it helps somebody like that in those circumstances and that size. It's gonna help you guys as endurance sport athletes. So go to precisionhydration.com. 15% off TW 2025, or you can click the link in the show notes and that'll automatically apply 15% off to your account. So there you go. One day maybe we'll have that athlete on if he agrees to it.
Well, you know a lot of athletes there. All the names that I hear that's been being dropped now from
and they talk about me. I don't talk about that.
That's the interesting thing. They want to know about Jim Levinsky. So
that's right. Okay, let's go to one of our video reviews.
So before we go there, I want to do one thing. I want to make sure that we mention the partnership. Should we clear that up?
Yeah, you can't see that.
Okay.
No one can see what that's
okay.
Back end stuff. Yeah.
The partnership that we have with Paul, LA Tri Club, it's this Saturday, and it's I believe what is the date this Saturday? I don't even know. The 1st, the 2nd?
The 1st, March 1st, this second.
March 1st. So a big thank you to the Ironman Foundation that has sent us, I believe, as of now, and I think there may be more coming, but 8 pallets of merchandise for the fire victims of the Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena for the fires. Paul has put together, the president owner of LA Tri Club, a distribution location and a distribution day. We've set that day up together. It's Saturday, 10 to 2, right?
That's right.
And it's for the victims. It'll be lots of shoes and backpacks and garb and all sorts of things.
Helmets, sunglasses, all of it. Yeah, get a whole 8 pallets worth of stuff.
For those affected. And I want to make sure we define affected. If you've lost your home, if you have not lost your home, but the contents of your home have been smoked out, like many, because we have 34 people who lost homes. Physically, homes are demolished, right?
Yep.
But then we have folks like Brian Panosian, as an example, who his apartment is still standing, but he can't live in it any longer, and everything's smoked out. He's had to throw his clothes away.
Yeah.
So anyone who's been impacted from fire, smoke, or loss of homes, you can come by. If somebody decides to come by and pick up for you, you need to have an email from them, their name, and identifying themselves and their address as a fire victim. So we can therefore check off on the list, because this is not going to anyone who did not lose or were impacted. This is strictly for those who are affected by the fires. And it'll be 4 hours. We'll have a number of volunteers there before to set up, volunteers there after the breakdown. So I want to thank Paul from LA Tri Club for doing this, and Ironman in particular for sending this. Really super appreciative.
Yeah, Ironman really came through with a ton of stuff, and it'll be fun to be over there. I'll be over there, and maybe we'll give some of those triathlon swimming, master open water swimming with Tower 26. Maybe we'll give some of those away too. I'm sure those burned in the fire. We'll give those away. All right, let's bring up the video. Let's do a swim video analysis here before we log off this episode. That's what everybody waits on. We get every week we get these videos, Jared. Someone always wants to send the video in. This has been really hot addition to the show.
This was good. A good idea on your part.
So let's get that off there. Okay, let's
set me up here.
Here we go. Okay, we got it. See this now? Can you see
Yeah.
that?
We
All
got
right,
it.
we got it. We're on. We're live.
So I'm just gonna go. Let's go full speed for just a moment to take a look at this JJ.
Okay,
Oh, I
this
guess I should
JJ.
turn this volume down, huh? Could we turn that off?
Let me.
Well, here's what we'll do, Jim. I can make it work otherwise. So JJ is in the blue cap, sort of in the middle of the video, the top of it. There's somebody swimming backstroke over to the far right, the top right. He's the guy dead center of your screen right now, looking on in that blue cap. So I'm playing this in about quarter speed for you, half speed. So because it's so far away, Jim, as you can tell, this is really difficult to give some assessment on this. You can't tell anything about alignment from the side,
Right.
and you really can't tell much about propulsion from this view. But let's see a couple things that I picked up immediately. Right here, you're going to see that right hand entering the water right there, right? If you can quickly see that. It's right there in front of his head. We call this the saluter. This is the person who puts their hand too close to the head at the entry. We want that right arm to be extended a little bit further out front before placing it into the water. And that's about all that we can actually pick up. He has a little bit of a head lifting, but I don't think this is much of an issue. The left arm comes over, a really nice entry, fully extended.
Yeah, see that difference in different hand entry. Perfect.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous, right? And one of the things that he does really well here, and I know I should probably try to blow this up a little bit better, you know, head, hip, feet, pretty much at the surface, right? This is quite a good job here. How was the
good.
volume's good? Okay.
Yep.
So overall here, JJ, quite a good job from what we can tell. And by the way, JJ did send a little bit of background. He's about a 30-minute half Ironman athlete and 103, 102, 103, 104 Ironman athlete. So next time you guys are sending images in or video in, a little tighter, that would help us clarify better. Now let's do the head-on view here of JJ swimming in. Let's see if this has any noise associated. Does it? A little bit of noise there. But here's regular speed coming in. We can see a little bit of the head lifting here. And then let's back this up for you to get in. Let's slow it down. So here's what we can pick up a number of things here. So JJ, these are the things you're going to need to work on. So Jim, you can see it right there. The hand enters, and there's the head lift. You guys take a look. There's that head lift is way too high. In fact, we're seeing his goggles out of the water from a front view. So that's a no-no. Don't lift the head that high. Then let's look at the entry of that right hand that we talked about earlier. It comes into the water. It enters right there. Now, you can't tell depth, but we were depth from this perspective of how far in front of his head that is. But that's the saluting arm. But look what happens next, Jim. Take a look at the right hand. Look at where it's going. Look at the right hand relative to the lane line, the yellow lane line. Look, look,
Whoa.
look.
Way outside.
So what are we seeing there, right? We've got hand all the way out there. Here's the shoulder line right there. So that hand, right, should be somewhere in here. And we got you all the way outside
Jeremy,
here.
a little squiggle right straight out from the shoulder. Yeah. That's where it should be. It shouldn't be he's under the lane line with that hand. It's coming so far.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is JJ did send in his note that he's having some bicep tendon pain and shoulder pain. That's the reason right there. That's it. That is why. And the hand's going out. I'm also going to guess, we can't tell from this image, but his thumb is likely away from his forefinger, and that you'll feel in the bicep tendon. So this is a big part of your problem here.
Can you back up to the entry, Jer, where he's entering the water with that hand? Enter, a little further. Also, look at how his elbow just slams into the ground before his fingertips. You see that? His elbow's slamming into the ground before his fingertips. And that might be a big reason that he's coming outside too, is that he's got to bring the elbow back up as he comes down, which just causes that outward sweep. So on his left hand, he gets a nice fingertip entry without slamming the elbow down. So that could be a reason too.
That could be, yep. And let's look at that since you brought it up, that left arm, and it's also, where did that arm go?
That's pretty wide too, yeah.
Pretty wide. That hand is pretty wide. So we got major alignment issues for JJ to fix up. And what does that mean? You got to swim the hand, just fingertip to the wrist, needs to swim within a particular geographical pattern, area, boundary, guidelines. And that's between the center of your body, center line of your body, and your shoulder line. So the hands are too far outside. And there's also a lot of tautness issues here, very sort of slightly soggy body posture. So let's give some quick scores. We can't tell much on propulsion here because there's nothing from beneath the surface. So on tautness, I'm going to give a 68. On alignment, 55. And then on propulsion, I can't score it because we can't tell.
Yeah, I mean, for the propulsion, you'd think he's dropping his elbow a good amount at the front of the stroke, so he's probably not getting a lot of purchase on the water until he gets to about his hip. So I think he can get a lot more out of the propulsion. I'm not going to give a number because Jerry's the guy who gives the numbers, but got that elbow up at the front, got the fingertips in first, elbow up. You're going to get a lot more out of that pull as opposed to dropping the elbow, then bringing up the elbow as you come through your stroke.
Agreed. And the fact that he's swimming as well as he is, 30 minutes and 103, 104 for an Ironman, 30 minutes half Ironman, he's obviously has good power, and these are fast times, okay?
Yeah.
So he's doing really, really well. So there's probably a lot of good things being done on the water. So remember, these videos are quick little 5-minute reviews that we're doing. You want the real thing, you go to Coach Jack, right?
Yep.
Where does that get sent to? I don't even know what's the address. We send that into
yeah, contact at tower26.com and they'll forward it to Jack.
And Jack will take care of it. You get a full video analysis. You get all the scores. It takes about an hour and change, and then you'll get to redo it in 30 days and get another review as part of the fee for doing it.
Yep.
And I put a quick circle on here. Oh, could you back? Is it you able to back up for just a sec?
Here we go. Coming back to it.
Yeah. The reason I put just so that folks can see, I did put a circle on here, and this is here's your head lifting, right? Remember the mantra: no lifting, no tilting, no tucking, and that's the head lift right as the right arm enters and start the stroke. So we don't want any lifting. You just want to turn the head to the side to capture the breath. No lifting, no tilting, no tucking.
Yeah, you see that ear out, both goggles out. Maybe think half of a goggle out, or one half of one eye out, the other eye still under the water. Keep the head down a little bit.
Yep.
All right, do we want to talk about a workout of the episode, Jerry? Or are we pretty far behind?
Let's move on to let's get ready for the next step. Let's do a little tease as to what we're gonna talk about today, and then we'll end up the podcast for today. So let's go over the next time. There were some incredible track records that were broken. I want to talk about
track records were broken.
World records, right?
Okay, world record.
I want to talk about British Triathlon, what they're doing that USA Triathlon's not doing, and this is regarding performance.
Yep.
This is something that we can learn from. I want to talk a little bit about Holly Lawrence, and then I'll work out of the episode, and then one other thing will keep it a surprise.
Me and you, we don't like to share the microthing, but we got a lot of good info today, a lot of good history of the sport, got some info on the Zuma Beach Triathlon, but we don't like to share the mic. We got a lot to talk about, bud.
I got a little goosebumps when, sort of going back in history, remembering those days of when Bob was talking about, 100, 108 people. I mean, the first race I ever went to probably had 150 people at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was totally different than it is now. And there's something nostalgic about it, right? And to see that Michael's back and, being one of the original race directors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. When you hear of a sport like Ironman 1978, 79, and to be a trailblazer like Bob and say, I'm going to go do that, it took a lot of guts. It took a lot of chutzpah to pack it up, go to Hawaii and do the race. And yeah, I mean, that's why he is who he is. He's a special human. So it's a really honor to have him on here. And I hope you guys learned something from him.
Remember when he launched competitor? I mean, the whole thing, I mean, I've been around as long. I'm just not as profile, obviously, as he is, but certainly followed the sport and appreciate everything he's done, man.
That's right. Well, go to coaching.tower26.com. You can see the workouts of the episode, get all the audio, get all the video cues, send your swim video analysis that you want it done on air, Jerry, GERRY at tower26.com.
And it's helpful if you can send an underwater video swimming into the camera, just 6 or 8 strokes before the wall. That's all we really need. 10 seconds max. And above the water, just as JJ did. You can send three files, less than 10 seconds. It's perfect.
So then if you guys want a full-on video analysis by Coach Jack, the swim surgeon, email contact@tower26.com and you get the protocol for that. But a lot of good stuff in this episode, Jared. Thank you. I know you're going to Tokyo for the next couple of weeks, so have fun over there. Good luck to Elizabeth running the Tokyo Marathon.
I know we're like trying to end this, and I keep not ending it. I'm having a meeting the day I get back from Tokyo, and I'm excited about this, with the owner of EO, and I want to talk about that in our next EO, which is the force paddle. Yeah. So Jamie, we've never met. We've corresponded a number of times and chatted on the phone, but he'll be in town. He's from Australia. Yeah. He lives in Australia. But he'll be in town for a trip, and I want to be able to share some good information with you guys on our next podcast.
Fun. A lot of stuff happening. So I like doing these every couple of weeks.
It's great.
Keep the contact coming, guys. Questions, Jim@tower26.com. Videos, Jerry, Gery @tower26.com. And go to coaching.tower26.com for all of our Tower 26 workouts and to do what we are doing wherever you're located throughout the world. So for Jerry Rodriguez, Bob Babbitt, Michael Epstein, this is Jim Lubinsky, the Tower 26 Be Race Ready podcast. Thank you